The first time I tried Dark Souls, I hated it. Everyone I knew wanted me to finally embrace Peak, and the only thing I remember was vibrating with rage as skeleton archers constantly sniped me with arrows that moved 1 mile per hour. The magic of dying over and over just really didn't hook me at all, and I was too stubborn to learn the benefits of doing things like dodging. Then years later, FromSoft graced us with a new game called Elden Ring. After such a long period, it was finally time for me to give their games another shot. That is, until I got absolutely steamrolled by the big guy riding a horse in the beginning of the game. Yeah, oh great, this is gonna go fine, I'm sure. This is gonna go fine, I'm sure. He acted as the gatekeeper that sent casuals like myself straight to the uninstall button. Looking back on it though, that was kind of a perfect introduction to a long journey of suffering that most sane people probably wouldn't take. There's something different about Elden Ring though, because every copy is infused with Miyazaki's magic spell to transform all of its players into masochist.
Fuck, my asshole opened sideways.
I love this game. And dear God, did it work. There's just something about this game that I couldn't give up. I ended up spending the next 100 hours completely engrossed in the world and everything it had to offer. Beating it was kind of bittersweet though, because it would be a few more years until FromSoft released its first DLC, The Shadow of the Erdtree. If you're still wanting to play it, or already have, there is a good chance you've heard at least one thing from almost everyone. This DLC is hard, and they're not wrong, it really is difficult. Stop! Go after the Spirit Ash, not me, man! Stop! Good fucking lord! But it's also said to be one of the greatest DLCs to ever grace the gaming world, so as a casual Souls enjoyer myself, I wanted to take you on my journey through the Shadow of the Erdtree to see if it's really worth picking up. Also, this is going to have a pretty decent amount of spoilers, so this is your one and only warning. FromSoft says that you have to do 2 things before playing the DLC. Beat Radahn, which is something I already did, and beat Mohg. Now, I'm going to be honest, I really didn't know that Mohg existed, but he was first on the hit list. Now, Mohg is a fucking joke. It did not take me long to find and kick his ass with the orbital laser beam spell 1-2 combo that carried me all the way through the base game. Behind Mohg though is a creepy ballsack with a withered hand sticking out, apparently belonging to Mikola, which is where you actually start the DLC. You might think that there's cool new dialogue, or that it warrants a beautifully crafted cinematic. But that's where FromSoft throws that all in the garbage and says it's time to get straight into the action. This is where you might experience some nostalgia for your beginning at the Cave of Knowledge, emulating those baby steps that feel like you're a caveman stumbling out of his hole for the first time. Okay, we're here. We're finally in the DLC after millions of years. Are you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Then when that world opens up in front of you, it looks absolutely massive, which made me question, why wasn't this its own game? Oh yeah, oh that's the stuff. I felt instantly overwhelmed on where to go first, which for open world games is probably a good thing. Also, after taking a look at the new map we're given, it kind of seems like maybe half the size of the lands between. But don't worry, because we all know, like my height, size doesn't matter. Anyways, something Shadow of the Erdtree does very well is verticality. God damn, how far down does this go? Is something I kept constantly saying while exploring the giant valley in the middle of the map. There's plenty of catacombs to explore or mountains to climb infested with dragons. I'm not doing fentanyl. Shut up. But for us, the first area we'll visit is called the Graveside Plains. And eventually, instead of a tree sentinel, we're greeted by a massive furnace giant that can fire spin you from 1 billion meters away. Oh! But on this channel,
we're cowards.
So I took the more sensible option and ran straight past it. In total, there's probably, I think, 5-ish bosses that you can't skip since they're needed to fully progress through the story. I personally like to explore and find hidden bosses and paths, like the Death Knight, who kicked my sorry magic-using ass for an entire 2 hours. Oh my god, fuck, I'm out of mana, what do I do? Oh shit! So we gotta fucking hit him. I do 0 damage. It's so over.
All right, Ian's DS.
Ah!
Here's your not weed weapon.
I'm dead.
Welcome, Raiders.
Fuck. After many many deaths, I slowly came to the realization that I wasted the entire night before rune farming the giant bird, because no matter what level I was, the enemies were absolutely decimating me. Everyone else was right. This DLC was throwing punches every chance it got. Oh, what? Once I started to encounter more bosses, specifically after the lion dude, I really had a tough time progressing. Rilana being the next obstacle was an extremely fun but very punishing fight. This battle had me confused because I was frustrated with Rilana constantly attacking me, but mesmerized by her phase 2 transition. She throws not one, but 2 moon spells at you and then comes crashing down for a triple shockwave combo. What's happening? Oh my god! After beating Rilana, I can actually say that I have a new thing for women in suits of armor that want to kill me. Now, I'm not going to say any of the bosses are too hard. There are, of course, frustrating things that happened, but most of the bosses do feel fair, except one, Commander Gaius. One shot?! This is probably the most universally agreed piece of shit boss in the entire DLC. And it's for good reason too, because Gaius has a hard-on for immediately charging at you as soon as you enter the boss room. Dodge to the left, you take damage. Dodge to the right, you're fully dead. Get on Torrent, he'll catch up. This fight is hell. I really ended up disliking this boss, not just because of his moveset, but because he's one of the early aggressive bosses that fly lightning speed towards you when you step into the boss room. The reason why this is a problem is because it causes your camera to either be up against the wall or under him staring at his cock and balls. There are other bosses that have the same problem, like the Golden Hippopotamus, who has a very similar moveset. But FromSoft decided to make me look like a piece of shit for complaining though, because they patched the game to move Gaius' ass all the way to the backside of the arena when entering the boss room. Thankfully though, this problem isn't universal, so fighting some of the earlier bosses like Rilana or Mesmer feel much, much better. Alright, well I'm dead immediately. Especially after doing what we're going to talk about next. Before facing Mesmer, one of the main faces for the DLC, I decided it was time to actually explore and upgrade my build. If you're unaware, the DLC leveling works a bit differently. FromSoft thought it would be funny to give the upgrade points a silly little name and called them Skadoo-tree, I don't know, which are scattered around the entire map. Every time you find some, you can upgrade your overall stats, and there's about 50 or so in total. There's the same thing for something called Revered Spirit Ashes that also level up your summons as well. Some people hate these things and prefer the runes leveling, but to be honest, I actually didn't mind it. My dopamine-deprived brain actually really enjoyed exploring the map and finding these fragments. If I had to make one complaint though, it would be that there's only 50 pieces, which is the exact amount you need to become fully upgraded. Since there are no redundant pieces, you'll most likely end up backtracking and having to look up where these things are. To be fair though, you don't necessarily need to be the max level for these, but it kind of helps you not get pulverized over and over. As an expert walk around and pick stuff up player, I felt pretty confident in finding these until maybe around level 14, and then I had to turn to parkour tutorial videos on YouTube to get the last remaining few. Revered Spirit Ashes are the way that you level up your summons in the game, and they aren't as bad because you don't need to collect nearly as many of them. There are a lot of cool summons added to the DLC, which I never actually ended up using because there's only one person I could rely on, myself. Or the boys, which is a tanky group of skeletons that absolutely carried in the distraction portion of the run. If you're having trouble, I highly recommend finding where these guys are, because they're just sacrifices at the end of the day, but they are brave and it's up to you to avenge their noble deaths. He's gonna die. Yes! Yes, thank you! Thank you, my friends! This isn't the only way you can progress in the Shadow of the Erdtree, because I also decided to change up my build, and by totally not looking at a guide, I found one of the best spells in the entire DLC, Impenetrable Thorns. This Blood Mage build completely changed and may have kind of broken the game. Mesmer got obliterated by bleed procs, and my stream chat could not believe what they were seeing. Easy! Easy! Going back and finding the right items for this build made me come to the sad realization though, because for a lot of builds I wanted to try, the items weren't available anymore. This is because Elden Ring has a habit of locking you out of quests and areas if you progress too far. Huge shout out to the people in the Elden Ring Discord though, because they saw me very sadly begging for an armor set and decided to donate it to me. At first, I got kind of annoyed at being locked out of that stuff, but now I just feel like it's something I can do if I ever decide to replay it again with something like New Game Plus. Also, just for fun, here's me going back to fight Melania for the first time, and I admit, this build might be kind of overtuned to say the least, and it's probably going to get nerfed, but man, does it feel rewarding to go out and find this and changing up my build. You might be looking at the damage and thinking, oh, this is unfair, it's cheating, whatever. But let me tell you, this doesn't last forever, which is something we're going to get into a little bit later. She's dead. Best gamer in the world! The Shadow of the Erdtree does a balancing act in calming you down from your fits of rage by showing you some of the most breathtaking landscapes I have ever seen in gaming. If there was one thing I had to choose that FromSoft is top tier at, it is the art direction. Everything about their dark fantasy world is perfectly crafted. Some of my favorite areas are the Cerulean Coast, where there's a distinct lack of every color but blue, and then a red version right above it at the Hidden Grave, which you can only get to by traversing over a giant dragon corpse. I ended up taking a lot of screenshots that are worthy of being my desktop background, which is saying a lot if it could replace the big anime titties on Wallpaper Engine. Before talking more about the locations though, I just couldn't not mention the bosses in the game. They're badass, they look incredible. Most of them feel super fun to play against unless they're riding a boar. The transitions between the phases of the boss fights are probably some of my favorite things in the DLC. I mean, just look at how clean R'hllana looks. The music, the visual effects, everything is so goddamn beautiful. One of my favorites is Bales, which I don't even have words to describe this. Holy shit, that's awesome! Oh, good lord. Hey, stop. It seems like some other players might disagree with this point, but during my downtime from fighting, I feel like there was a pretty good amount of things to do in the open world. There wasn't a lack of major enemies to fight. The loot could be a little stale though at times, where all I was finding was smithing stones, but there's one unacceptable thing that FromSoft did. There is a huge lack of caves behind the 20 or so waterfalls. Honestly, that is just criminal and I really can't forgive you. While the visuals are great, there are probably going to be times where you go, okay, this looks like it should do something, but it just doesn't. For example, the Skadu altar bowl thing hidden behind Commander Geiss's arena. I know it gives you Skadu tree fragments, but honestly, is that it? I mean, I don't know, like, come on, put something in there. If you're planning on picking up the DLC or you already have it, please make sure you go to the Abyssal Woods. Finding this is a task in itself, and the area is totally optional, but please, if there's any side content, I recommend it's this. I'm not gonna spoil what happens because it's such a fun first time experience, but just finding out who is waiting for you there, and the build-up is incredible. Oh, it's so good, I love it. After all our trials and tribulations, it's finally time to go over one of the most important parts of the DLC, the end game. Giant, huge spoiler warning for this part. I'm saying it again. You're welcome. Let's talk about the final boss, who might confuse you if you don't pay attention to the lore like me, Radahn. Radahn is easily the hardest boss in the DLC, and as a mage, I felt extremely punished by how relentless his attacks are. You are in his domain, and everything you do, he has an answer for. If you're too far away, he pulls you in with gravity magic. Oh, you want to drink a flask? He's gonna skydive straight towards you. If you summon, they'll be dead by phase 2. Leave them alone! Leave them alone now! At this point, it was clear to me that even with summons and an overpowered build, Radahn does not give a fuck. He will just beat you to death with his sword over and over, never giving you a chance to breathe. From every point until now, I was able to summon my Mimic or the boys to distract the bosses while I casted spells from a distance. But Radahn is different. Your summons are so beat down after the first phase that by the second phase rolls around, he's killed them, bought them a casket, and attended their funeral. After 50 or so frustrating deaths later, it was time to readjust my approach. This was the time where I really had to rely on learning his skill set while weaving in spellcast and heals in order to save my summon for phase 2. And then finally, I was seeing major progress. But right as I thought I was about to win, this happened. What the fuck? Oh, hell no! What the fuck? I can't even be mad at that, to be honest. But we kept trying again and again, and after 128 tries, I beat Radahn, which felt amazing. Is he dead? Is he fucking dead? Did I do it? He's dead! Yes! Oh my god, yes! Oh, he's dead! He was by far the most difficult boss for me, and I'm glad he was. Now, some of you might leave comments saying I didn't beat him because of this or that, but truly nothing can take away from the incredible feeling I got after finally ending the fight. It was some of the most frustrating fun I have ever had playing games. After beating Radahn, there really isn't a lot of in-game content unless you didn't fight all the bosses or enjoy multiplayer stuff. Personally, I don't continue to play single-player games after beating them, but Elden Ring is one of those few games that make me want to replay it all over again. Maybe try a new build or help other players beat bosses they're struggling with. If you're a casual and you're looking to play this game, some people might say that there's a right or wrong way to beat Elden Ring. And they're right, there is a wrong way. And that's not playing how you want to. By the way, official announcement, I finally started a Patreon, so if you want to support my work like all of these wonderful people right here, there's a link in the description. Thanks for watching.